It's time for Doug Craig's Damn Podcast. He's a motivator, advocate, songwriter, content producer, podcaster, entrepreneur, husband, father, faith walker, and an all-around interesting dude.
It's time for Doug Craig's Damn Podcast.
Hi, this is Doug Craig. Welcome to the show today. And we have a very, very exciting situation that you're going to be a part of. We have one of the newest films to come out of Detroit. Detroit is really known for a lot of street hustle type movies, but this one is different. This one is different. This one says Hollywood or Los Angeles or Montreal. It doesn't say Rapville or anything like that. What do you have to say, sir?
I play Stephen Grainer in the new film Mind and Distortion, written and directed by myself. I am, as one of the things I think I'm most proud of. And none of that could have happened without the great cast that I was able to get for this movie, for it to seem like it's out of the ordinary for local Detroit films. And that's just, I'm so happy and proud of you guys for that. James Azure, I'm the director, and I play Stephen Grainer.
I dreamed about it last night, which I suppose is a blessing because it meant I was actually able to sleep for a little bit. But when I woke up, I just stared at the ceiling. I've cried so much I can't even cry anymore. It's just this feeling like I'm sinking further down in this black trench. God, I hate this feeling.
Monique Shanae, actress, and I play Naomi.
But I do appreciate you being here for me, Ludwig. I do appreciate you letting me stay in your home. How can I go back to that house after everything that has happened there?
Jerry Miller, I play Dr. Towers.
Hello, Charlie. I see you're sitting comfortably. I just finished another session with that insufferable Linda Morawski. Every week I tell her to leave her boyfriend, and every week she comes in crying, saying he used her for money again. Some people just never fucking learn. Of course, if they did, they wouldn't come and see me and give me money.
Alana Crowder, I play Bianca. So, you're finally gonna meet him in person. Are you excited?
You know, I am actually.
Okay. So a coffee shop, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really seem like the most romantic place to have a first date.
Well, you guys should be proud because, again, being birthed out of Detroit, there's a lot of stereotypes about Detroit movies.
Right,
most
especially
of them,
vis-a-vis Tubi.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And I have one film director, he told me that a Tubi movie is subject to have the overhead mic in the screen, in the shot and all that other kind of thing. And this reminded me of the movie Torino, the way they shot that. It had that kind of Clint Eastwood kind of quality to it. I mean, that's what I was thinking. I was looking for the
And that felt good.
Yeah, no.
I was looking for the Torino to show up. But no, seriously, I think it can help redefine the width and the landscape of Detroit films. So
Definitely.
be proud about that. Sir.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's start. Now, the young lady, you are a wonderful actress. You were so convincing, and you were passionate about, being careful. Mom, be careful about this guy. You don't know him yet, computer kind of thing. The character, how did you prepare for the role?
I feel like I really didn't prepare for the role. Really kind of came natural to me because it's like I'm a teenager. In situations like that, like I had my mom, sometimes, she would like pick out not the best men, so like I'll be there giving her advice, trying to help her out, stuff like that. So it kind of all just came natural for me.
Oh, that's awesome. You played that role really well because there are a lot of young teenage females that are in that position. They're looking up to their mothers, and they were just looking out for the best. So as a mother in the film, Naomi.
I think that it was cool to play that role because a lot of times as parents, we think we know what's best and we don't listen. And I enjoyed playing the part where she was trying to warn me, and I'm rolling my eyes like, girl, I'm trying to live my life. You don't tell me. Yeah. So it was really kind of like even related to being a parent. Sometimes you do have to listen to like your kid because one rule for me, I have boys. Okay. So it's different. I don't have a daughter. So if my boys, like they do kind of have a large say on who I bring around or what kind of man I will have in my life. If my boys don't like you, that says something to me. I listen as a real parent. But in the movie, no. I threw all caution to the wind.
Yeah, I thought that it was like, hey, look, I know you're concerned, but I've got to do me right now. And it seemed like coming out of a bad relationship, the abusive piece, all of that, you were thirsty for a fresh air.
And that was one of the things, and I'm glad you used that word because when I first read the script, it was certain things that she said or within the script, and I'm looking at him like, well, no, I don't want her to say that because I didn't want her to appear as much thirsty as in her mind. I think she was trying to be careful by going to get a totally different type of man. He's a doctor. Yes. He's this. So I'm not going to get like you said about a Detroit movie, I'm not going to get this version. I'm going to get this version. And she thought she was not being thirsty, and she thought she was doing the right thing. Yeah. So when her daughter came with these warnings, it's like, I can't win for losing. That's how I kind of took it and played with it. Not so much as I'm the parent and I know what's best. It's more like, okay, this is something different. I'm not going to do what I normally do. I'm doing something different. I didn't want her to come off as thirsty, but in a way, I guess, because she was wrong. And that's how it came out anyway.
And it's stated in the movie, too, that her and her husband, Bianca's dad, who we never see, but it's briefly mentioned, they had some really toxic relationship. And Monique over here really understood the character, just immediately, and like how, okay, well, obviously she wants to find a guy who's different than what her husband would have been, right? Guy who's completely different, right? This doctor, soft-spoken type dude who, it seems like he's really well off, perfect, right? But of course, now we know.
Not so perfect.
Right.
Not so perfect. One of the other differences, I think, when you mention like this movie compared to a lot of other Tubi movies, I'd like to say Alana and Monique and myself, we did a lot of read-throughs.
Okay.
She came having it down.
Wow.
She came prepared, as did Monique, and James had to yell at me every now and again, but they really came ready to rock, and I think that comes across.
So it seems like Alana she personified today's teenager. I mean, you really,
yeah, she did a really good job.
The leaders are being taught by the followers.
Yeah, definitely did.
And I think in the movie, you, as her mother, I think you portrayed that acceptance, with the care.
You know what? What was great about it is so much paralleled in real life that played into the movie because actually Alana is the only one that had previous acting experience.
Wow.
So when she came to that, she made me step my game up because I'm like, kid. But she already had it. You know what I'm saying? So I still had to learn from a kid, and in the movie that was kind of like the parallel of I have to look at this little girl and learn from her because she's the only one in the cast that has done this and I have never done this. So I don't know if she knew that, but there you go. She had made me kind of like, that's what made me bring it a little bit more is because I knew I had somebody that already, had it.
Not that it was a
She had
competition.
it. No, but she had it, you know, and she was professional. She was serious.
Yeah.
She's a kid, but even, like she's a kid right here, but this is 2 or 3 years, ago. So she was even younger and was definitely professional. Definitely she wasn't running around or acting like a kid. So it's like, yeah, we had to really bring it. We can't have her being the most professional one on the. So she kind of brought it all out of us. Everybody's game up came from Alana.
Oh, wow, guys.
Well,
She
now
set the tone.
Yeah. Well, now you mentioned other movies. Alana,
Yeah.
in the role of Bianca, you definitely came across as someone who has done this before. Would you care to share, or can you share with us?
Yeah, I didn't have like that much experience. I did do a play I think probably like a year prior to getting cast. I had just did a play, but it was still like I'm still very new to it. I haven't been in a lot of stuff, but my dad was like very persistent and making sure like I was practicing my lines every day. He was like, "You're gonna be off your books by the time you're supposed to be filming." So he was making sure I practice every day. He was like, practice. Like, he read with me. He make sure I was doing what I was supposed to do. So, thank you, Dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, Dad.
Well, we're on the dad role. To me, is the most understated and undercelebrated. You know, it seems like every Mother's Day, the world stops on its axis,
Right.
so that everyone's celebrating mom. But the dads. Now, let me ask you, Alana, what impact would you say your dad had in terms of making you serious? I mean, what kind of influence?
Firstly, he kind of got me the role because he heard me saying like I wanted to do acting and stuff like that. So he was like, okay, well, he basically made the connect to get me. James came over my auntie house because that's where we was staying at the time. And we did an interview and stuff like that, so he got me in the role. So he was like, if you're going to do it, like, you got to be serious. Like, I got you this.
Nice.
You can't, he was like, basically, I can't have him looking whack because he got me the role. So if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, it's going to make him look bad. So I was like, I got you, Dad. I'm not going to make you look bad. So I had to do good for him.
They put a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah, no, it was hilarious when I first met her dad.
Great.
Yeah, he was like, because I was talking about this movie, I was, pulling together, and I was looking for this teenage girl, and her dad was like, I got like, tons of kids. He's like, how many you need? It's like, I don't know. So I was like, well, we just need one. But he was bragging about Alana. Alana is definitely you're the favorite for sure.
Oh, no.
Alana, where do you fall in the lineup of children in the family?
Oh, I'm the oldest.
Okay.
Oldest daughter. Come on.
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
Okay. Well, you were setting the tone. You put a lot of pressure on your siblings, I guess.
Yeah.
He was great on set, though. Like, the days that her dad came and stayed, like, he was comedic relief. He was,
Okay.
He kept her, like, it's in one way he did keep, but it's like, it's funny because she'll talk about her dad, but when they're together in front of people, it's like she's in control and he does what she says. And it's the cutest, it's cute. It's really cute to see, but he's very funny and he just really, he kept a lot of the days, he kept it really light for us because he was there. So,
that's funny.
shout out to A-Dot.
Now, the thing about that, you could tell in the movie it had a different feel about it, right? And that's, to me, is what parallels home. When you come from a home that there's leadership and they're showing you take life seriously, right? This is not to be played with. In walks the show or the movie, and Alana's personifying that same role to her mother. She's saying, look, be real careful about this guy. And I guess when you look at it, she was absolutely right.
Yes. Definitely. I mean, but look at that face. That's not the face of a serial killer. That is. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey.
So, yeah, it definitely was great to have A-Dot. And it's funny that we are having this little segment on fathers because we didn't do it actually. It didn't turn out that way, but we wanted to have like a special part of the premiere. You remember that? And it was supposed to be to the fathers.
Wow.
Because fatherhood played a very significant part.
In all fairness, I did shout out the fathers one by one at the premiere, but we didn't do a whole production like she wanted to do.
Yeah. But a big shout out to the fathers, because fatherhood really brought the movie together.
Oh, yeah.
That, you know, it was about mothers and all that, but the act of fatherhood and a lot of behind the scenes and just love of fathers made this movie what it turned out to be.
My father right here, you know.
Yeah.
That's the story or the narrative of the sporting world. When the camera hits, they'll say, "Hi, Mom."
Right.
Thank you, Mom.
Right.
You know, Mom gets all the rah-rah. But Dad, if you look at, I can go down the list, Joe Jackson, you look at Serena's father, you know, Tiger Woods' father.
Right.
You know.
But none of these people's names would be known if it was not for that part.
Yeah. You know.
We just had a nice.
But there's a place for it. You know, there's a place for it. And I think the realities of the film is just wild. I mean, when you look at the individuals there, you wouldn't think that Naomi, she has a thing. She was working out herself, you know. She was working out. She was fresh out onto the market again. And she stumbled, by way of the new technology, I guess, she stumbled across what she thought was a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
But we know different.
Right.
I tell you. Now, Steven was the first one to crack me up in this, because I was like, this is a horror flick. This really is, because your demeanor in the film in the very beginning was super regular, right? But it was something about sitting in that car. I said, how long is he going to sit in that car?
That was a great scene.
Okay.
We got a lot of feedback on that scene from people like, wow, that really sold
Yeah.
where his mind space was.
Yeah, that was cool too, because it's like, you know, they talk about talkies versus movies, right? You know,
Wow.
a movie that just, you know, talks your head off explaining, right? You know, doesn't have the same effect as just showing the audience. And what was so cool about that scene is because we got to, you know, I also did the music for the movie too.
Nice.
And we got to do all our, you know, Shining, Kubrick type music. A lot in that scene, and just with you know, the crazy music, but just the totally kind of like void, you know, like the void in his soul of him just sitting in that car for hours, because that's obviously what it implies, that he's just been sitting there just staring off into space. What's more like unsettling than that, right? You know, for showing somebody completely going down that whole descent.
When I saw that, I was like, boy, this drug by Notarol. Man, this stuff's serious.
It's good stuff.
It's working like a charm.
And he was such the gentleman in the beginning of it. He just seemed like a relatable guy, you know, sitting there on the sofa talking about his issues. But when he came up with that yellow handle, you know,
That accent.
I was like, man, this has just changed. And that, for me as a Detroiter, and I'm not saying this because you're sitting right in front of me, but my chest had to go out a little, because it wasn't atypical Detroit kind of thing, right? But I guess you couldn't resist, because there's a line that I remember, and it goes like, watch ahead, or duck down, or something like that. When Doc was all G'd up, so to speak. he became a different guy.
That was one of my favorite scenes
Uh,
that I was in. But when Alana's in the house and the Axeman cometh, there were gasps at the premiere.
Yeah.
Audible gasp from people watching it, because they were pulled into the story and they cared about her. You do that when you're really into a story. You care about characters and you get mad at others. But their reaction was very gratifying that we got that from folks.
They nailed
Yeah,
it.
that was very surprising, because when you sit in the editing room like I did for over a year, every time you see her getting murdered, you either chuckle or, you know, because it's like, all right, here we go again, right? You know, but that was like you said, that was wild, hearing the people react, especially not only that scene, but one of my favorite scenes, in which Monique absolutely kills it in, is the her therapy scene where she's sitting on the couch, and it's shot the same way as Steven when he was on the couch, right? You know, so we got that whole callback. But
shout outs to that sofa or couch she was sitting on.
Shout out to
some
that
quality leather.
I remember hearing there was a few moms around me, and just hearing them be like, "Oh my God," right? You know, when she was really just pouring her heart out, and that I was so proud.
It was authentic.
It was very.
I think that's what really did it. And until that basement scene, I was like,
Yes.
this is a different Detroit movie. And I hate saying Detroit like to just
Right.
pigeonhole it to Detroit. But there's a lot to be said about Detroit right now.
It really like
It's on the comeback.
it is.
Oh, yeah.
But we noticed it. Like, to be honest, the night of the premiere, like I was not expecting. First of all, the location was great, and I'm pulling out like, oh, okay, this us. We get in there, and first of all, the audience was not a typical Detroit movie audience. It was half black, half white.
Okay.
And when you go to Detroit premieres, it's all black, just being honest. And so at first I'm like, okay, this could go either way. One might like it, one. So to get to the end of the movie, like when it first started, because I sat down like in the front, and I turned around and I saw like, first of all, it was so like, it was everybody. And I couldn't believe it was that many people. But after the movie was over, the response, like everybody loved it equally. It had nothing to do with color. It was everybody just loved the movie.
They broke out and started cheering.
Oh my God!
That was
Like
cool.
it was
Music came
overwhelming.
out. It was, yeah.
It really was. And to get the responses of like people that we didn't know. It's different when your family says you did a good job, but when people are standing in line, strangers, to tell you how good you did and to know what we went through, especially with him. And I say that because he was the one that was like, I'm just helping my son. I'm not really trying to be. But he, from the beginning to where it ended up, it's like he became this character. And so I was so proud to see people really flock towards him because I know what it was like when we filmed it. So to see him get the attention that he got, I was like blown away by that. And I know he was too.
Yeah, it was,
Go ahead.
no, it was quite something. I was standing by where people were leaving, getting out of their seats, and just about everybody in there shook my hand, and a bunch of people said I scared them. And they didn't know what to think, but they were all smiles. They were all like, wow, you guys all did such a great job. That it was a good movie to watch.
Yeah. I wish I was sitting in there because I would love to know what kind of gasp was made when he did the job on Bianca. I mean, that was like, dang, man.
The young lady and the young girl in the bathtub.
In the bathtub. It was a bigger gasp, At the end.
Yeah, so the scene at towards the end of the movie, right before we show her being lobotomized, the whole full circle thing, we show a flashback. It was a black and white scene with me talking to a little girl. And she's talking about her, her lost
like
cat.
a perv. The only thing that was missing was a white van.
Right. It was very creepy. But that was the little girl who was in the bathtub.
Okay.
It's one of those things where you kind of realize it after you think about the movie a lot, because we were originally going to have that scene right before. Well, we were going to have that scene with me talking with the little girl and the black and white thing right after the car sequence. But through editing, I didn't like how it kind of flowed. So we put it towards the end as a flashback, and we have Dr. Towers' audio of him reading Stephen Grander's confession, and it's just kind of this like really eerie, like what's going to happen, right? With him talking like you already know that she's dead or that she's going to die. But because it's like because it's such a black and white, memory, it just adds, I think, a layer of really eeriness that I was really.
It's a child.
And
little girl.
It worked so well, like in the movie.
Little toy.
Yeah.
Everybody in the theater was like, "Oh," because it's like they knew, like he's about to kill her, and she was so cute. Just her little leg was, and it was like she's so innocent, she doesn't even know.
Sweet little kid.
No,
She
It
really
was a lot
was.
of fun.
It was.
Well, she is. I mean, okay, she's not dead.
She's not dead in real
She's
life.
a sweet little kid.
Yeah, and
Bianca
even that,
was such a sweet little kid.
Yes.
my Bianca. Like that was another thing too. Was not even that it was not a typical Detroit movie, but James wasn't scared to like go there with like. And that's what when we had the premiere at 90s, somebody came up like, y'all came out the gate killing kids. Like it was just like people don't show dead kids.
Yeah.
And you showed one already, and then he did Bianca. So it was like, even though you don't have to show it, the fact that, he did it and they showed it. And it was nobody knew what to expect. That was another thing. It wasn't a typical movie, Detroit movie, but just on movies, period, it wasn't a movie where you could say, oh, I know what's getting ready to happen.
Right.
Oh, I know what's going to. It just kept people like, wait, no, he's going to. No, it was one of those, and
Suspense.
to hear that in the movie theater and looking around and seeing it, it was like that was really cool to see all the responses to it. People were really into the movie.
But now, you talk about the emotional mood swings that people are having in the theater. Now, Steve, how was it a mixed response? Great direction, great concept, but you killed the cute little girl. What did you do?
Yeah, I don't know. It was mostly, great job with this and that. The thing with the child murder, obviously, people are like, wow, really coming on strong with that. But one of the things that I think really makes this movie so different than, the rest of like the Detroit movies is because a lot of Detroit movies, they talk about subject matter that's some heavy stuff, right? They'll talk about prostitution, they'll talk about even murder, but because of the killer in this movie, the character I play, because he was doing these actions against his will, and all this is based off of true events. The fact that the killer, it really wasn't his fault. It's like how would you feel about the killer, which is why I wanted the scene with her and I talking in the police station to be so nuanced, because initially you would think if a mother talked with the killer of her child, she would be screaming and throwing stuff at him, but because she feels that blame because she was dating the guy that really is the one who did all this, right? That choreographed this. She's struggling with that on the inside too. And Monique, oh my God, she did such a great job of balancing out all those emotions without showing too much this or that, right? Showing the conflict and nuancing it really well. And that was just one of the things I was so proud of, not only in the writing of, but also in the fact that the actors I had be a part of this really understood the assignment.
Nice.
And all that.
You know what was, I think, the inability to accurately predict what was going to happen next. I think that's one of the shining stars, and I give you props to that because I got to tell you, I expected Naomi to get caught going through that file cabinet. Typical movies, he would appear out of the dark and knock her in the head, and punish her in that kind of way. But she made it to the police station. Shout out to the Livonia Police Department.
Yes.
They were good sports.
They definitely were.
And we shot at the Livonia Police Station.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, but that was
That'll be a later story.
that to me was that's part of the magic and the creative angle. So my question to you as a director, of course you had the storyline in order, but was there any parts where you said, what should I do that's not going to be what the audience is going to expect? Because there are a lot of pieces that could have gone, but it went different.
Well, definitely the scene you mentioned with the filing cabinet, because we had a few ways we wanted to do it. We were, thinking about like, oh, what if there was a fight? What if there were kind of like Misery, where he fights Kathy Bates towards the end, right? They do that whole climactic thing. I like the direction we went with though, with Ray. Like you think he's gonna appear behind her, but we kept it. And that scene was inspired by Shelley Duvall in The Shining when she's going through the all work no play makes Jack a dull boy. So that was directly inspired by that.
Everything comes to her now all at once.
But I liked where we went with it for sure. I was totally not expecting that. One of the scenes we had not planned for, which is my absolute favorite scene in the movie, which is the ending scene, with her crouched over naked and the spotlight flashing, and you see her kind of trapped inside her own consciousness, and she can't get out of her mind. With Dr. Tower's eerie voice, echoey, and all that stuff. We had not planned to do that. We were originally going to end it with just her being in the basement, because I really like the whole full circle, right? The movie starts with some lobotomized guy and Dr. Tower sitting in his chair. The movie ends with Naomi being lobotomized and him, right? So it's the whole full circle, which is all Kubrick inspired. I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick fan, as you can probably tell. But we, Ash and I were like, well, let's get a little bit more time in there. Let's try to get it closest to an hour as possible. So we, and that scene was so hard to do. And I'm going to go into this now.
Let's go.
She did not want to do that scene,
Get
Monique. She did not. And I mean, obviously, right? Because being asked to be naked on screen is always, something to get your head around. But that's another thing I'm so proud of is that the nudity in this film was classy. It was done, tastefully.
Yes.
It wasn't, the guys at the strip club and women, bouncing their booties. Her being naked shows the vulnerability, and this is her inner self, right? She's trapped in this, I was just so proud of Monique, and she called me 5 times before that day, like, I can't do this, like, I've done so much for you, we're not doing this, this is a bridge too far, and I'm like, Monique, we got this space for free, because the guy who was shooting my movie and who edited it for me was friends with the owner of that place, of that warehouse where we shot that scene of the ending scene. And I was like, Monique, if it doesn't look good, we won't use it. But we're playing with house money. We have nothing to lose here. You just gotta trust me.
That's right.
And the fact that she had that level of faith in me as a director was a huge compliment. And it just goes to show if you.
Well, just if it helps you to know that, when I saw that, I thought of the cover of Anita Baker album.
Rapture.
Yeah. I mean,
And she's crossed over. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That was a very pretty.
Thank you.
That was a
'Cause
very
that's one of
pretty
my
cover.
man.
I honestly thought that's where y'all got that from, but it showed vulnerability. Excuse me. Yeah, you showed a certain weak but yet
Strong.
strength.
Okay. We can talk about that part because, I did. We went back and forth, and I understood because, like, we became like writing this. This became our project, like in the middle of it, and so I understood why he wanted to do it as far as artistically, and I understood number one that James was not about to just throw nudity for no reason. We had. Discussed all that. So I knew it wasn't that. And then it became, okay, it was a thing for me to do because of my age, because of just so much, like, when are you ever going to get a chance to do something like that? So I just went on ahead and did it. But what I will say is that I felt more of an actress because it was freezing. We did that in, like,
cold.
December.
No, we did that in January.
Okay.
2023.
Wow.
We shot that.
Snow on the
In
ground.
a warehouse that had no heating in it at all. And we had to bring in, space heaters for that area. But she was butt naked on cement because it was cement floor. So she was a real trooper,
right.
for sure.
And so it's like I'm trying to act like I don't have goosebumps. I'm not shaking, but between it, I'm shivering. But as soon as they cut them, I'm back up. That to act like I wasn't cold, to sit. How many takes we had to do it at? So I was there for a little minute. And it's funny you say Anita Baker, and I thought directly of it, but all I was trying to do is make sure, in my mind, I know my sons are going to see this movie.
Right.
All right?
Right.
So how can I pose to where they not like, that was all that's in my mind. So that was the only pose I could think of where you could tell I was nude but not see anything.
Cover up and be.
And so now, to be honest with you, when I first saw the movie, I was like, what did y'all do to my body? Like, I didn't know that I had like a little tone to myself. So I was like, look like I've been working out. I thought they had did something. So
if you do say so yourself.
Okay. So no, to be honest, I did, and I was like, what? So that part I'm proud of too, because I'll be, that I may not ever get a chance to do that again, but it looked like art to me, like a little statue. So I really appreciated doing that, and I'm glad that he talked me into it.
Well, I'm glad the fourth one.
Yeah, the
you said
fourth
it was
time.
back and forth. Well, I'm glad fourth one on that because
it worked.
Fourth time's a charm.
And it really gave a softness, and it really I think without any words, it spoke multitudes, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
There's a maniacal element of it too, knowing Towers is there with her, and this is what's going on in her head, like you said about the horror movie element of it. It brings that into it too. Like, wow, this guy is crazy.
Yeah, I don't classify the movie as a horror movie.
It is that element. from
It
now
does.
and
I
again.
wanted to add the element of horror in it,
Right.
Because some of my favorite movies, like
Right.
Jacob's Ladder,
Okay.
which was another big inspiration for this movie.
Nice.
Like those movies, like that movie isn't a horror movie, but it definitely has some really scary scenes in it.
Gotcha.
Especially when he sees the demons coming at him driving, the car, when
Yes.
and he doesn't understand that he's dying yet. So I really like movies that do that, where it's like, they're not officially horror movies, because horror movies are so
Predictable,
they're
man.
so predictable,
Yeah.
and they always follow the same, really loud music, and then
Yeah.
quiet, and
Yep.
then kablam, right?
Eerie
It's right.
calm.
The jump scares, you can already time them.
like Christine sitting in the garage,
Yep.
the car,
Right.
and then the lights pop on.
Yeah.
You knew what that was about.
Kind of watched and you were, besides The Shining, it was another
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
That's what the studying was.
again, I know we keep going back to this, but it is not a typical Detroit movie. It really
No.
isn't. And this is no diss to Detroit filmmakers.
No, of course not.
Or directors. And
I love to be movies.
oh, you do it with the microphone saying? No, I'm just playing. No, but no, it is. And quite honestly, I began watching Tubi because I played the role of a mayor, okay, in a local film, okay, and I'm not a guy that curse, swear, and do that kind of thing, right? But in grand Detroit fashion, it was always this, this rah-rah, this
Right.
violence. And I'm going to say something that, I don't know, it was, I guess, my magic thing that I used. I'm going to say what it is. Most of our Detroit black movies, everyone is screaming at each other, right? They're like, yo, man, they're doing all of that. So what I did was I took the opposite. I spoke quietly. And when you speak quietly, people listen. They pay attention. And so for my mother to watch this movie and my son, I didn't want to curse.
Right.
So I spoke to the director and I said, listen, man, hey, I can't put myself out there like that. My son's watching this. I said, what if we had someone that can speak for me? And that's when we came up with a consigliere.
Right.
This guy would come in and he would say, and I would just go, what would I say in a time like this? And then the guy would just blurt it out. And it was like seriously gangster. And that gave it a different spin on this whole thing. So I just really like the tempo of the film.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I did want to say, it may not be a typical Detroit movie, but another thing that I did want to point out that I loved about the movie is it's a Highland Park movie too.
Okay.
NEP, a lot of the people that were in there, like we also do music and spoken word and stuff. So it's
Nice.
a whole community that was in the basement that we hang with all the time.
So that was Highland Park House.
It was Highland Park, like
All
HP. And so the parts where they went down there, a lot of the people that were down there were like friends
From the
that
neighborhood.
show up all the time, and we go to that same basement, and that's how it actually is down there. So it did get to show like it's a Detroit movie, but we also have to shout out Highland Park, and to go to 90s Knowledge Cafe and have the premiere there was important to us because it was community, and a lot of people that were in the movie didn't get tickets and couldn't go to the premiere.
wow.
So it's like you didn't even see yourself. So let's come and do it at 90s where we all met up, in the first place. And that's where I met him at 90s. So to play the movie there and have the people that were in the movie come down and see themselves, like that was so important to me. But I just wanted to say, like, we keep saying a Detroit movie, but we got to also say it's a Highland Park movie too.
Yeah, shout outs. For real.
Shout out to Highland Park.
And I was going to say, I know they were present in the audience. They were like the ones that, we
That's
represent.
Yes.
We represent. Shoot, the roles are so believable. And like I said, Bianca came across as a vulnerable yet guardian type for Naomi. Now, I just want to ask you, how did you prepare to be that person? I mean, did you have a youth spin on this thing, or did you know walking in and reading the script that you had to be mature?
Well, since like I stated earlier, since I am the older sibling, like I'm the oldest out of all my siblings and stuff like that, something that comes natural to me. Like when they need help, I gotta be there for them. If my dad, feeling type of way, I'd be like, okay, guys, let's chill. Dad's not having the best day, or like stuff like that. So it's kind of something that I've just been doing my whole life. So it wasn't really that hard for me.
Now, as a student, how are you? I mean, are you an extrovert type or are you introvert? What?
Yeah, I'm very introverted. I don't really like people like that. So this is definitely kind of out of my comfort zone.
And we're all looking like.
So this is kind of I know when to be, but like I'm very like chill unless I'm like comfortable around people, which they did a good job making me kind of, bringing out myself, and having my dad also, help me to do that as well. But yeah, I'm very chill, introvert type of person.
That's awesome.
Her dad was on the set the days that she would. Like when we did the dinner scene and the hatchet scene.
Oh yeah, the screaming scene.
So he was there, which is good.
Yeah.
He was a big part of it for her.
And that could have been like that visual strength that you may have needed to pull this off.
Yeah.
That's
I will
awesome.
like to take credit for her crying scene though, because I was the one that I made her cry off camera.
It was beautiful.
And we used it for
Nice.
the mom. I just want us to be safe.
That was
So I was proud.
that was a cool moment though, because she was getting frustrated, and she started crying because she was getting frustrated. She had to keep doing the same take over and over, and she was getting frustrated. And her mom and them, we were trying to keep her from crying. And I thought about it. I'm like, no, stop. We need her to cry.
Right.
So use that, and the way she did it, like, was perfect. The way the tear fell and everything, it was just that's one of my favorite scenes of the movie, because I know how it was in the background, but the way it plays off, like the way the tear fell and everything, she's so pretty anyway, but
Yes.
it just was, it brought it together. It was
Most
great.
people are very ugly criers, you know.
Yeah,
Like
it was like that one little tear, and it was just like, oh.
so yeah. To cry like a painting is a very hard thing to do. So
dope.
kudos to you, Alana, on that.
Kudos.
Thanks,
That
guys.
is really cool. Now, Jerry, Dr. Ludwig Towers.
Yes.
Man of the hour.
Did you have to take some crazy classes or something? What did you do to
Actually,
really prepare?
it
'Cause
was very
convincing.
difficult for me.
Are you
She
serious?
said I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I could do it.
Really?
And getting Dr. Towers out took a lot of coaching from James.
Nice.
James had an idea of how he wanted Towers to sound, his cadence. And it took me a while to get that, but once I did, it kind of came together for me. Once I knew how he talked, I could separate me from him.
Okay.
Because as James will say, I'm more sing-songy and this and that. Dr. Towers is very deliberate,
Very monotone.
very monotone in the way he would talk and deliver. So it took a while to get there. The other problem I had is that I'm basically the lead. So if I'm terrible,
Yeah, the whole boat
I
kind of.
doom everybody. So it,
whole
it
boat
was
kinda
a lot
sinks.
of pressure as far as that goes. But when James said he was happy with the take, I knew he was really happy.
Nice.
Because if he wasn't happy,
He gonna make you
he
keep doing it.
he would make you keep doing it. He would tell you, no, I'm
Alana's
seeing
like,
Jerry,
for
I
real.
want Towers.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, now, Jerry, when you asked him about, doing the scene and how were you doing it right and all that kind of thing, did he have that yellow hatchet in his hand? And did he make it go back?
The thing too that I knew I had to do as a director is that a director has to find a way to make their actors understand, their vision that they want. Because a bad director is just gonna be like, all right, this is kind of what I think. You do what you think is right. But for him, and specifically Dr. Towers' character, him and I both love the movie Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
And I wanted his cadence to be like Martin Sheen, in that movie, where he has it's very monotone, but it's also he's kind of sassy in that movie. He has a very pessimistic view about Vietnam, about him having to go out in the jungle, and how he only wants to think about being back there, but when he's there, he wants to see somewhere else, right? There's a lot going on with Martin Sheen's character in that movie. So I wanted Towers to have a little bit of that kind of sassy element of him talking a little bit. It's very on the down low, but since he's such a soft monotone speaking guy, there's a little bit of that of him being kind of pessimistic. Yeah.
Let me ask the opening monologue. Now, was it you, Jerry?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that was
No.
dope.
So are
Oh,
you talking
no,
about
you mean
the opening when he
the
talks
German
about
guy.
Yeah, the German guy.
yes.
No, that was
Yeah.
someone else.
No, that was somebody else. That was David Martin.
Okay.
And he plays the character of his father from the '60s. That was supposed to be him from the early '60s, talking about him. Well, actually, it's supposed to be him in '67 because they're talking about like the whole Detroit riots and everything. And I'm so glad we did this movie in Detroit because there's so much of Detroit's history that is parallel to MK Ultra. A lot of people have never heard of MK Ultra.
Right.
I didn't hear about it until a few years ago, and we live in the time of so many conspiracy theories about UFOs and Bigfoot and everything that it's hard. It's like, okay, which one is what's actually has substance, right? Which isn't just a theory. And MK Ultra was a real thing. They have court trials.
Senate hearings.
They've done tons of Senate hearings because
so you did a lot of research.
We did a lot of research. And shout out to Aaron and Melissa Dykes with an amazing documentary on YouTube. It's like 4 hours long, jam-packed with information, and they list their sources, because I'm always big on sources. Their documentary is called The Minds of Men, is their documentary. And they use real footage. And the scene that we did in our movie, if you remember the Virginia Reynolds scene, where it's black and white.
Yeah, was that the little girl?
She had the electrodes. No.
Oh, no.
It was
okay.
the grown woman with the electrodes in her hair.
Okay, I got you.
That was based off of real footage from that's actually shown in their documentary, and it's just like a 30-second clip they show, but it was real footage of a doctor.
Oh yeah, that's the lady that they were asked. She was asked questions by Dr. Towers, and her first answers were polar extreme from the second answers.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I watched the movie, man.
I know. I got you.
I saw it. I enjoyed it. I didn't just watch it. I truly
For an
enjoyed it.
hour-long movie, there's a lot of gems in there,
Yes.
sewn into it.
And those gems are like, seriously, my biggest criticism. And when you guys walked in the door, the thing is too darn short for me. I wanted more, and that's actually the way to do it, because you get people wanting more of this.
We had a lot of people at the second premiere saying, "You're doing another one, right?" That was the first thing he said. You're doing a part 2, right? And we're like, sure.
No, I've already written the.
He's written it.
The screenplay, so
It's great.
so we're ready to roll on that. There's just and I'm going back to the, this isn't a regular Detroit movie. I had written a few screenplays before, and they were pretty generic. They weren't that deep. But when I had come across MK Ultra, and when I came across that documentary, when I did some research of my own, I'm like, oh my God, because in that documentary they go into really good detail, which we go in with part 2, but they go into great detail about the riots in Detroit in '67 and how there were all these neurological doctors, really, big suit guys. They were pushing this narrative that the black people who were rioting in the city were rioting not because of the environment or not because of the living conditions, because there was something mentally wrong with them that could be corrected vis-a-vis psychosurgery. But they were actually pushing, lobotomies back then. That's why lobotomies is such a prevalent theme in this movie. Like with JFK's sister, and that she was lobotomized, they threw her away, kept her from the public. But that was something they were really pushing back then. And of course, we look back now like, oh, that's crazy. But this is just, there's so much Detroit history that goes in with MK Ultra. That I was like, okay, this is the movie that with all the people I've met in the city doing music, like this is the one I want to collectivize and do a movie about.
I excuse my voice, but I being a marketing at my core, I'm a music marketing person, right? And I always had the theory that if you lose what it's like to be the target audience, then you've missed it, right?
Right.
So whenever I watch something or listen to someone's song, I try to pretend I'm the person that they're trying to get, right? So I'm watching this, and I'm like, is this a horror movie? No, let me just stay open. And when it started unraveling, it was really heavy. I mean, it really was heavy on the mental thing. You know, I thought about, what is it? There's a certain drug that they give people to cleanse their addictions or whatever.
Right.
But they become zombies for a while there.
Right.
And then there are some drugs that turn you into psychotic behaviors. And this drug that you guys portrayed, did you guys just kind of make that title up?
I made up Binoteral.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought it sounded cool.
Yeah, it sounds
It has
legit.
a ring to
It
it.
sounds
Well,
legit. Yeah.
Well, because I wanted to mix like bipolar
Okay.
with like, you know, Adderall or Tylenol.
Gotcha.
You know, the null
Yeah.
in a lot of medicine. So Binoteral. That's
Man.
kind of what birthed
Well,
from
and
that.
you guys, I'm serious. You guys, and this isn't a stroke because I could just close it out and be like, yeah, great, yeah. But you guys did a convincing job of your roles. And what's so funny is, I guess you can tell how people will respond to you. Because when Monique came to the door here at the studio, I thought she was knocking on my neighbor's door. So I looked at the security camera and I said, oh, that's somebody from next door. And I said, I don't know. So I opened the door and she had her fly glasses on. And she says, no, I'm here for the interview. And she took her glasses. I said, oh, wow. So I felt like that moviegoer that happened upon you by accident, right? So,
Yes.
so that's great. I can't wait till they see, you know, they look up and James is sitting there, you know, that's what they're thinking, right? And they just either not like you or they feel sorry for you for what the doc did to you,
Right.
you know?
And that was the thing too that I'm really proud of was we wanted, well, at least when I was writing it, I wanted to do something where it's like, okay, what if it was Jeffrey Dahmer, but what if he was being drugged and doing the horrible things he did? Would we still look at him in the same light
way.
as we do, right? You know, so you know, and that's you know, and like too with Dr. Towers, right? You know, we always put a lot of trust. We put a lot of trust into our doctors, right? You know, especially our psychiatrists. You know, because we emotionally we give ourselves away to them. What if the person who you emotionally give yourself away to, who
Is tripping.
I do, as
Right.
well as she does, is somebody who has very nefarious things that they want to do to you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like what ifs that I thought were interesting that we kind of piled together for this.
I'm not stroking you, man. The way it was written was like an orchestral piece because you had to say, okay, I don't want to give it too many timpanis and drums, and percussion. I want to soften it with some flutes. It was orchestrated. You being a musician, of course,
Thank you.
I had to throw that in there. But seriously, it came together like a fine piece of art. And this is no diss to the city of Detroit and Atlanta because there are a lot of Atlanta type movies.
And this
that
movie
parallel.
could not have happened without Detroit. So I
Yes.
definitely don't
Right.
want it to be like a diss, like
No,
our
this
movie's
isn't
so
a
much
roast
better.
session. No,
of course
no,
not.
This is a
This movie,
celebration.
it is, and it could not have happened without the open-mindedness and the overall, just the tenacity of all the people in the city,
And
of
their
everyone
support.
involved, and their support.
Yeah.
Because I first came to the music scene in Detroit from just doing, recording my own songs over at Mix One Factory Studio, and there were some people there. They they were like, "Hey, you sound pretty good. How about you, record for some of our stuff?"
Sweet.
And then they offered, and they told me, and they told their friends about me, and then I was doing gigs behind their friends who were rappers and R&B singers, and then I was able just to kind of do my own thing because not enough people had seen me. But without just the, like I said, without people being like, "Hey, you're really good. Let's have you here," or "Hey, what do you think about this?" Without that, this never would have been able to happen. And I just have so much love for Detroit, and I'm really glad we were able to do this movie with Detroit because, like I said, there's so much history
Yes.
in Detroit with the riots that we, briefly, but we talk about. But I like how the movie also isn't just a documentary about MK Ultra. It's it's almost like a retelling of Frankenstein in a lot of ways, like right, Dr. Frankenstein, the creature, Bride of Frankenstein. Those classic motifs that we've seen in literature for hundreds of years. That we take it up a notch in Detroit with the heavy subject matter of MK Ultra, and we set that all as a stage, and it kind of it breathes on its own.
And the thing about and again, this has not been a Detroit roast, movie roast or anything like that, but I was in Atlanta when it was beginning to take shape.
When it was the movie,
and it was all about Tyler Perry. right? And it was about all of the street type movies that were coming. So I'm proud that we are producing successful street movies here in Detroit. I mean, if it wasn't for Detroit, I mean, Alana wouldn't have anything to watch. Because are you a YouTube fan? I mean, Tubi.
Yes.
You know, in Detroit, I mean, if you just go to their search bar and type in Detroit,
Right.
I have a singer here that comes to the studio, Ametria Parado, and she's been in 12 Detroit movies. And she's really smart because before she takes the role, she makes them place one of her songs in the movie. I thought that was pretty dope. I thought that was really dope. But what I'm really getting at is I saw Atlanta blossom. And it started with the street movies. It started with black culture. It started with, you know, a little ugliness on the streets, you know, and then it became these Atlanta big time productions. And I'm so happy because it looks like Detroit is setting up the same stage.
And the market's there.
But
Yeah.
The movies
I'm
out
not
of
gonna get too
Hollywood
much.
and these traditional platforms, they're not that great. They're all narrative driven.
Yeah, I think I really
And,
do think
people
Hollywood
hunger for something original.
is, at least for the past 30 years, is very obvious. You know, their formula for making movies, and you know, people get sick of that. I know I have. I mean, my favorite Hollywood movies are all from, you know, pre 1990 and, you know, before. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, all that crap. But yeah, this movie. It is a street movie. I do think of it as a street movie because it was so, you know, we're just throwing it, you know, not like we weren't not that we were careless, but we had a lot of people pitched in order to make it. A lot of people in the crew, you know, we all sacrificed a lot in order to do this. And I'm just so proud of not only it, but of everyone, especially the actors, because it was, you know, there were times where I know it was not easy, but they really, really pulled together.
And I'll throw this question around the table. All right. At what point, as an actor or actress, did you determine that this movie is a little something different than I expected? Like, this is not just a thing for me to do. This is different. And we'll start with our Bianca. Alana,
I
go
would
ahead.
say when I seen like the finished product, because I was only there for like the beginning of the movie. I wasn't there when they were like filming the rest of the movie and stuff. So like when I actually seen it and I seen it all come together, I was like, oh wow, like. And my dad kept telling me, he's like, they said no normal Tubi movie. They got you good production and stuff. And I was like, yeah, like, cause he's seen it before me. So
Okay.
it was really cool to see just the finished product and like, you know, me actually being in the movie theater, like on the wall with the other movies, like high productive movies. It was
You were
cool,
like,
too.
wait till I get to school on Monday. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Jerry?
We did a special screening with the videographer Ash and Monique, James, and I. And I was worried the whole time about myself. I was like, I'm going to let everybody down. And when that movie was over, I said, we did it, man.
Yeah.
We hit it. I'm like, I knew James would do a good job because he's passionate. And I have a high degree of faith in him. But the movie was better than I thought it would be. And I didn't cringe seeing myself. I was very worried about that. I was like, wow, this really is going to be a strong movie. Something we can all be proud of.
You know what I'm hearing is that I think part of the secret sauce is you guys were your natural self, so to speak.
Right.
Like Jerry, you were worried because you were thinking, I'm gonna bomb this one.
Right.
But whatever you are, Dr. Ludwig became, you know, Dr. Towers became that.
Right.
And that was a great, what they would call great casting. Great job.
Well, you know, I have a philosophy. I truly believe that not everyone can be an actor, but anyone could be a character if that character fits them. You know, if they don't even, you know, that was one thing, I know I keep writing him, but Kubrick would do, is that he would try to find people where they wouldn't even have to act that much if they were aligned with the character. You know, like Malcolm McDowell just kind of naturally has a very, you know, fiery, vibrant nature about him, which was needed for A Clockwork Orange. And he's very just naturally soft-spoken. And but I knew, and he was the one that showed me the MK Ultra video originally. So obviously, I knew he had background knowledge about it, but through talking with him, we really, got to, the character that was, that we needed. So,
and again, this is, I only brought that up because it just seems as a natural fit.
Right.
It's like I met Steve when, well, I keep calling him Steve, but it's so believable because you changed up. When I met you, it was for another project, a video shoot, and you had your guitar, you were doing your thing, you were just super cool, right? Super cool. And then you came to me, you said, hey, listen, I just did a movie and blah, blah, blah. So I saw this guy who went from being a guitar player into being a creative that was deep behind the scenes, but with his eyes set on making a difference and making an impact. So that's when we began talking about that. But I gotta tell you, when I saw the film, man, I was like, dang, this dude did it. Because he's really weird in this movie. I mean, really. And you did a great job of being weird, man. I mean, so I hope you don't take that the wrong way.
I know, that is the biggest compliment.
It's authentic. Man.
Right, sure.
Shoot, well, guys, any of the last comments you want to make there?
Oh, when
How
I
about
knew,
you,
wow, it was so many times. I think the first one, real time, was when you and Ash, first showed up with like the real equipment. Like when he asked me to do this movie, first of all, he's a young guy. And so I thought it was like little college stuff. They were gonna come with some little cameras. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be in your little movie, James. And he came with like real equipment and like, this is Godzilla. Oh, this is Ash. Oh, this is real. This is not a game. And that's one of the first times. And then I think really after the movie premiered and everybody responded to it, because it's one thing when you put something into something, we know what we put the work into. So of course, when we saw the movie, we liked it because we knew what went into it. My son, it's certain people that I know in my family, we don't just give you credit for doing stuff. Like if it's not good, it was like,
you gotta earn that.
You tried. And my son is very much, and don't take this the wrong way, and another reason it was easier for me to work with Alana is because her and my son are the same age and the same sign.
Okay.
So my son is a very quiet, reserved type of guy. So at the end of it, when he walked up to me and I turned and I looked at him, and he started screaming and jumping up and down. My son does not scream. My son does not jump up and down. That's when I knew, we did something. Like, it brought something out of him. He was so happy and excited for me that it was like the people's response to the movie is when I'm like, we did it. Because, again, this was not a typical Detroit movie. So I didn't know. We didn't know, like, how are people going to look at it? Like I said, the audience half black, half white. We didn't know. And at the end, for it to be such an overwhelming, like, applause, and
with everybody.
Everybody loved it. And, I mean, so that's when I knew. And even, like, not to be funny, but I got haters in my family. So they were kind of like, and I say this with love, but that's just how we rag on each other, And so I have a cousin, I won't even say his name, Damon. And he was like the one that I was like, man, he gonna be like, yeah, he was all right. So when at the end of the movie, when I walked up and he was like, if it isn't our own little Viola Davis, I was like, he was like, So for him to give me the people that it was certain people, my mother didn't fall asleep during the movie. It was just certain things. No. My mom sleeps through everybody's movie. And she was like,
very into it.
My mom doesn't watch movies, but she was so into it that she watched the whole movie. So it was little things like that validated, like, we did it. And James has always been like, he like an Energizer battery. When he gets on something, he will not stop. And I love that about him because James, in a way, taught me to chase my dreams. So our age difference, again, I don't mind learning from young people. It's just, and a great friendship just out of this whole thing. Like, I know me and James have more projects to work on, and he's a brilliant young man. And I always tell him, like, I'm so proud of you. Man.
Who you hang around, you kind of become. If you're, what they say, if you hang around three broke people, you're the fourth.
Right.
And so when you hang around great creatives, you're the next, you know,
yeah.
and there's a huge compliment in that. That is awesome, man. You guys, this movie, I really, really hope it gets what it deserves because Detroit needs to elevate in the film business. I mean, we definitely have defined ourselves as a street movie town. We got that. We've got that on lock. Now let's expand it up to having mystery, horror, you know, excitement, you know.
And I really think it's going to happen. You know, it's like when you look at old Hollywood movies from the 30s, they were always set in New York, and they were always like, well, listen here, Bugsy, you know, they all talk like this. You know, like every movie talked like that. Obviously, it was just still, you know, growing.
Right.
And I think it's the same with Detroit. You know, I mean, obviously, it has its roots in being in the streets, but there's so much that can grow from the streets than just, you know, gang violence. Right. There's so many stories that are somehow even connected to, right, you know, giant, you know, government plots like MK Ultra, right, that still, you know, that are still is connected with the streets and with the people, you know, with those tests being experimented on. And I really hope Mind and Distortion kind of helps open that gate of showing there's so much potential in Detroit movies, because there's so much potential in Detroit as a city. Because when you get to a certain point, it's like everybody kind of knows everybody kind of knows everybody in Detroit, right? You're like, oh, you're this guy's cousin, right? You know, everybody sort of knows each other, especially in the art scene, music, film, you know, they all, you know, blend and mesh. And I'm just so proud of this. I'm so proud of everyone involved with it, and
James, you should be proud, man.
Thank you.
You really should be. And the thing that I think you cast, they're supportive. They saw it, obviously, and that's awesome. Guys.
And I really hope, just for my last thing, would be to anyone out there who wants to do a film and, you know, they're like, oh, I don't have enough budget or I don't have the right people. If you have persistence, the old Henry Ford saying, if you're persistent, you can make anything happen. You know, you got to be persistent with not only getting it done, but persistent in making sure that it's the best that it can be. You know, there's a lot I learned from doing this, because this was my first film. There's a lot I learned that I wouldn't do again.
So you didn't do, I mean, seriously.
Yeah,
this is your first.
This is my first film.
Dude.
Okay.
I have experience in theater, you know, because my mother is a, you know, theater teacher over at Cranbrook, and she's, you know, went to a theater conservatory in Canada, so theater is her middle name. So that's what I grew up in, was theater, and she would, you know, and I would learn from her from doing her plays that not only acting, but she would write her own scripts too, so I would watch her write her scripts. And running a play is a lot like running, obviously, a film crew, but they both are like running a kitchen. You know, there's a whole production that goes on behind the scenes, that goes on behind the stage, right? You know, that people, you know, got to know when their cues are. They got to have the lighting people ready, you know. So just having that background was very important.
Now, I've learned now that this is your first film. Now, was there ever a time you honestly, I mean, just be candid, that you felt like overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I'm in deep, and I got to pull this off?
Oh, I would. It was very hard for me to sleep. I don't think I ever slept the night before a shoot.
Wow.
I was always up, or if I did, I would sleep for like 2 hours, because I would just be thinking about, like, okay, you know, how is this going to go down? You know, we only got the crew for so long. We got to shoot all this. We got to make sure that it's not raining. And, you know, you always worry about the externalities of everything. But, no, I think I handled it pretty well. I don't think I ever was like, oh, you know, this is too much.
One of the big elements was whatever happened, we just went with it.
Yeah.
There were days where a certain thing wouldn't happen, and we just were like, well, we could shoot this. And when we would do that, it would be awesome. So the thing we planned for didn't happen, but we kept, you know, like he says, you have the crew the whole day. You got to make something happen. And everybody just went with it. Like she said, the sound guys, lighting guys, everybody was very supportive. Just good people.
Yeah. The days that he got overwhelmed, though, because of the way that he responds to anger was funny. So it was like... the day the
I'm a
dog
peach, I
walked
don't
through
know what I'm talking
that,
about.
it was because James is a perfectionist. That's one thing. Like, yes, he can work around it once he lets go of the fact that what he wants is not gonna happen. Yes, we'll go to Plan B, but he has really tried to make whatever work first. And we've learned as a crew to just let him get it.
His process.
Let him go through his process. And so we would like kind of just like let him go through his process. And it would sometimes be funny to me because I would have to like, because you still got to act too and be, so, you know, we would let him go through his process and then I'd just come over there and like make a joke or something and we'd get to laughing and then we'd say, okay, we're not going to do this, let's do this. You know, and it would work through it. But on some days that he got overwhelmed, it would be over things that would be little like, the lady getting ice in the ice machine in the restaurant
Man,
scene.
that was so irritating. We were shooting a scene in a restaurant, and this lady, who was an actual customer there, wasn't a part of the movie at all, sees that we're filming and goes to the ice machine right by where we're shooting, but she does it like 5 times.
She keeps getting
It's like,
more
how much
and
ice do you
more.
need? It really came across like she was just being petty, like at these guys' movie, you know? It's like,
Was she cast as like an extra? Just
No.
because you say, look,
We
ice
were
lady.
off on the side shooting, and they're still doing
we
business.
shot at a restaurant that was friends with. I used to work there when I was in
Okay.
high school. So I was friends with the bosses. His childhood friend was one of the bosses there. So they let us shoot there for free. We're like, oh, cool.
Nice.
That was the restaurant that where they meet for the day.
Gotcha.
And when we were shooting there was this lady. Like I say, because it was during regular store hours that we were shooting there, which I've learned not to do that. She just kept getting ice, and it's like you clearly see we're filming something, and you go back repeatedly for ice, and that really got on my nerves.
Yeah.
but it was funny. Like I couldn't be too mad. It was just kind of funny.
Yeah, at the time it wasn't funny to him though. So it was the way he would it's the way he would respond to it would be funny. But we again like now we work through it, we can laugh about it. But that would be the days I would say like, oh, he's gonna blow.
Yeah.
He's gonna blow. But yeah, we have fun with that.
Wow. But I had fun with this because actually this podcast, this interview, this process is longer than the movie is. And just because there's a lot to talk about.
Oh wow,
And we
that's
could,
crazy.
we could go on and on because there's so many character traits that you can ask questions about. And that's why I think this is like podcast worthy or discussion worthy when you go around the different markets because it's really a mind bender. You know, makes you think you need some of that.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Binaural or whatever. What is it called? Binaural. Okay. Well, hey, Dave, Monique, Jerry, and the lovely Alana.
Yes.
You guys,
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are the bomb, and congratulations again. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.